Do you want to write a really emotional book, one that makes readers laugh or cry, but most of all, talk about your book to other people? I'm going to give you exactly how to do that, and also some writing exercises that you can apply to take the scenes that you have right now and make them even more emotional. Writing a really emotional book is all about you getting in touch with what's going on inside of yourself and then somehow translating that to the page. Even if you aren't going through the same circumstances or have the same deep emotional wounds as your character, really writing emotional comes from writing from the gut. So you got to kind of let go of all those rules in your head, which is, show, not tell, make sure the plot is here, all of these little moving pieces that are part of a book, and write from your gut. I get how hard that is because I started out as a reporter, and everything about being a reporter is all about being removed and not putting your emotion into the stuff that you write. When I started writing fiction, I had to do the exact opposite, and that was actually really hard for me. I'm not a super outwardly emotional person, so getting all of that stuff going on down here in my stomach and in my head and in my heart onto the page was not easy at all.
Don't let them in, don't let them see.
But once I could, and I could really relate to my characters, it definitely showed on the page. There are 4 stages in any kind of an emotional scene. When something happens to the character that evokes an emotion in them, their first reaction generally is physical. Like you feel a pit drop in your stomach, or you get chills up your spine, or want to start to cry. Whatever it is that the character gets for news or discovers or hears, there'll be a physical reaction to that. You definitely want to try to get a physical reaction on the page because that does help the reader really see how much this is impacting the character. If it's like hitting him like a wave or, really making his heart beat faster, then the reader will understand this is a big moment for that character. The second reaction that the character will have is a mental reaction. It's either the oh no, I didn't know that, or oh crap, what am I going to do now, or I'm so heartbroken, whatever that a mental reaction is, because first we feel it, then we process it. So let your character have that physical feeling, and then let them process it a little bit mentally. Don't drone on and on with the mental reaction, because that's telling. And I have a video about showing, not telling. But you can definitely get it across on the page in a couple of sentences or so. Third stage of an emotional reaction is the quandary, the question. Like once the character hears this, what are they going to do now? Let's say that your character finds out he's the father of a child that he didn't even know he had. So maybe it hits like a sucker punch to his gut. And then he's like, wow, when did this happen? Oh yeah, I remember dating this girl back in college. And then he's going to be like, okay, what do I do now? So he's either going to decide to see the kid or not see the kid. It's going to become some kind of a question. What do I do now? That can create your character's next action, which is the 4th part of an emotional reaction. They have the physical reaction, they have the mental reaction, they have a question of what to do next, and then they actually do something. Even if their choice is to avoid the problem, like let's say the kid's walking toward the guy and he turns around and walks the other direction, that's still an action. You need to have the character take some kind of action. Because as I've talked about in other videos, nobody really likes these passive characters that just sit around and woe is me and I'm the victim and everything bad happens to me all the time. Nobody really likes that. So you want your character to take some kind of an action. Great, so you know what you should be doing with an emotional reaction, but how do you show it on the page? So definitely check out the show, not tell video, because that will help you a lot. You want to weave in memories that might have been triggered by this particular moment. Like maybe it reminds him of being adopted when he was 7. That kind of a memory that is triggered by what just happened. And then you want to try to use some of the 5 senses. A lot of people say use all 5 senses on the page, but I think that's pretty overwhelming. You want to kind of pick a couple senses and stick with those. Maybe it's a smell of the house burning down, or maybe it's the sound of the storm raging outside. Whatever it happens to be, pick a couple senses and use those throughout that scene. Using something like that can also create echoes for the reader and be another way to show what's going on in the scene. You also want to look at the small details. Think about your character and what this character would naturally notice. A police detective is going to notice totally different things in a scene than, say, a florist. Also think about what they would pay attention to because of what this emotion has brought to mind. It has reminded them of feeling alone. Maybe they're going to notice how they're standing alone or how it's just a shadow around them, nothing else. If this brings to mind fear, maybe they're going to notice that the room seems to be closing in. Whatever emotion you're trying to get across, that will be the sort of details that you're going to want to explore on the page. Let's put it into practice. First, let's take a scene where your character finds out that somebody they really cared about has died. I want you to write about all of the emotions that that character is going to feel in that moment. Then and I bet you know this is coming if you've watched my videos, I want you to talk about the impact on your character of this event occurring. What emotional impact did that have on the character? And then take it another step further and think about how that will impact them in the future. Let's say that the grandmother that raised him dies. Now all of a sudden he doesn't have anybody else. A character like that will probably not get close to other people because he could lose them. I remember when my husband's cat died, and he really didn't want to get another cat for a long time because he didn't want to go through that loss again. Take that moment and use it as some kind of a trigger or some kind of a moment in your book where the character is going to experience a big loss. Next, I want you to take a moment where your character was super scared. When I was a little girl, I watched a movie that was about these little gnomes that went around with knives. I don't know what my mother was thinking about letting me watch that, but to this day, I cannot sleep with any appendages hanging over the bed because, you just never know. There's little gnomes under there. Like, there was an impact for my whole life. That impact has stayed. So talk about that moment where your character was afraid. Maybe they got locked in a closet by their friends by accident, and so now they're noticing how close the walls are and how dark it is and the noises outside. Maybe that makes them claustrophobic because you're going to want to talk about the impact. You want to put them in another scary situation in the book because they're going to have to face their fears and overcome them. That is the key to everything that you're writing with your characters, emotional impact, because it really does dictate how they will react. And you can use that on the page. For more on creating really great characters, check out this video here because it will help you create characters that people really love.